amazing turnout. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I wasn't expecting to get this many people. So just first of all, thank you so much. So also thank you for agreeing to spend the next hour of your time, roughly, grappling with some really fascinating concepts: failure, mindset, fear, self-deception. And I hope that you've all seen the carrot cake brownie, tea, coffee, luxury biscuits, and courtesy of the School of Mathematics. Thank you. And of course, this is all for a fantastic cause. Me, the Mendel's Research Foundation, and all of the money from this talk will go towards that. And they're doing fantastic work to eradicate meningitis by 2030. So moving on to the talk itself, there'll be 3 sections around 15 minutes long, give or take, with 5-minute breaks in between for everyone to stretch their legs, scoff some more brownie, and get back to their seat in a leisurely fashion. At around 8 o'clock, probably a bit later now, the talk will finish and everyone is free to chat, ask questions, or leave, all very informal. And as for the sections of the talk itself, in section 1 we'll be looking at redefining failure and understanding the mindset towards it today. Next we'll look at how we deceive ourselves, and finally we'll look at how to embrace failure, from finding our calling to getting better results. So without further ado, let's begin. So here's a short video, and what I want you to keep in mind during the video and during the whole talk is that of self-talk, the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories and narratives that others and our society tells us, and how that influences our decision-making.
It's impossible. I got an 8 on this stuff. You can't write it right. Time hypothermia. America, you can't act at all.
So there we actually saw Anders Hoffmann, who is a Danish dude. He competed first Iceman in Antarctica. Absolutely incredible. So moving on to failure, as you can see up here, got no idea what this guy's doing. But failure comes in every area of life, from addressing insecurities, changing habits, inventing new things, writing, sports, relationships and conversations, even self-expression and identity. The problem is that when a fear of failure, of being rejected, of losing, of being embarrassed is the primary focus in your life, consciously or unconsciously, you avoid risk-taking at all costs. We try to protect ourselves by blaming, rationalising, with sometimes completely logical reasoning, as you saw in the video there, and ignoring the evidence. We avoid doing the things that we really want to do. We avoid living life fully, spending half of our energy desperately trying to avoid the inevitable failure. The question is, what could you do if you faced up to a fear of failure? Would you launch that business, go to the weight section in a gym, go travelling alone, whatever? And so, how can we move from a fear of failure to this? So these fears cannot be dealt with by just one perspective change. They are the fears our parents, our culture, our upbringing handed down to us. Perhaps we were teased in school, punished for being smart, taught to act like a man and toughen up. Whatever happened, something happened. And it shapes the way we view ourselves and the world. Now, you might not feel like you deserve to accomplish great things, or you might feel like an imposter in certain situations. You might ignore creative pursuits for more practical things, or be petrified of asking out that person that you like. To deal with these fears, you slowly have to challenge the assumptions and narratives built up over the course of your life. And it's not easy. It can't always be done alone. But in terms of happiness, it's absolutely necessary. In terms of moving forward, it's imperative. And we can't necessarily change the situations that arise in our lives, but we can change our perceptions towards them. We can change the narratives we tell ourselves. We can question the narratives given to us by the environments and cultures we live in. And so sparking the process is the first narrative change. Failure is not negative. Losing is not for losers. Losing is for winners. At least I tell myself that. Just as scientists test hypotheses, seeing failures as data points rather than indictments that they themselves are failures, so too must we see failure as a data point, part of the journey of life. And therein lies the power of embracing failure. Previous data points are the fuel for innovative work. Previous failures have the potential to provide feedback absolutely necessary for success in different fields. Success is built on failure just as muscle is built by actively tearing those same muscles. After all, you don't learn to walk without stumbling, learn to climb without falling, learn to speak without stuttering. And I love this quote, you can read it up there. When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stonecutter hammering away at his rock. Perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow it will split into, and I know it was not the first blow that did it, but all that had gone before. And so we realise something else, that there is no avoiding failure. Failure is not an indication that we ourselves are failure. It's an indication that we're playing the game, that we are pushing ourselves. If we're not failing, we're not pushing ourselves. And the point is that difficulty is on your path. Failure is on your path. Failure is the rule, not the exception. Understanding that there is no avoiding failure, only choosing what type of failure we want is key. And failure is the key ingredient that allows ourselves to realign, to take a new baseline and try a new approach. Failure is the off-putting medicine we need to force ourselves to swallow. It hurts in the short term, but ultimately it helps us grow. But we live in a society that promises quick fixes, riches, successes. We are promised a world in which we are all exceptional, fulfilled and respected. We are constantly exposed to the supernormal, to the extraordinary, to the 1%. You all here have phones and social media. You know, we every day, in every moment, we see groundbreaking news, astonishing feats, incredible people. And of course, we probably hear this all the time. Social media is harmful, etc. But we underestimate just how much of an impact this has on our view of failure. We are taught to be ordinary, to experience obstacles and failure, to experience the opposite of the magic that we see on our phones is not normal. We're taught that to be in the middle of the pack, to be normal, is to live a life not worth living, and that has great consequences. It instills in us a fear of failure, a fear of experiencing difficulty. And this fear means that we're less resilient when difficulties inevitably arise. It means that we create vague goals so no one can point the finger when we don't achieve them. We come up with excuses before we've even attempted anything, and we expect success to be quick. If we do not see significant weight loss, understand how to program, or sound like Beethoven after taking up the piano in a short period of time, we assume we're just not cut out for this and give up. And the point is, habits take time to build. You will not get it first time round. Your first drafts are going to suck big time. Do not always take this to mean that you're not cut out for it. Change is slower than you expect. And in our society, failure is stigmatized. Experimentation, trial and error, changing course is taboo. Never quit is the mantra we're given. Look at Tiger Woods. At 6 years old, winning tournaments. Specialise early and remain singularly focused towards only one goal is the sure way to success, right? Perhaps not. Failure in English culture, especially in the classroom, is frowned upon. Failure has origins in the classroom. Poor results are punished whilst good results are rewarded. And this builds in young students a fear of experimentation and failure, socially and academically. The focus is on regurgitating information, following set systems of answering questions, and rather than developing the crucial ability to question long-held assumptions and the status quo, and develop a healthy attitude to failure. This is the system we find ourselves in. A study on 1,423 Japanese high school students found that helplessness and self-handicapping were highest amongst those fearful of failure, and thus in setting a foundation in which failure is stigmatized and punished. The majority of students and people engage in a range of maladaptive, self-protective strategies. That is, they found ways to ignore their shortcomings through blame, excuses, rationalizations, or ignorance. And these sophisticated strategies to avoid, ignore, and even blame failure on others is part of something that we all engage in on a daily basis. That's cognitive dissonance and self-deception, which we'll explore a little bit later on. But, some of that sounds kind of depressing, to be honest. What can we actually do about that? Well, we can adopt another narrative change, and that's that of the growth mindset. And the growth mindset at this point is a buzzword you hear in passing conversation. It must realise that what you believe radiates outwards, infecting everyone around you. What you believe determines, in some sense, your reality. We have a default mindset in each moment that if we let it, it will take over. Perhaps, for example, we're in a queue or in a traffic jam, so we mutter under our breath, complain about how slow everything is going, and roll our eyes at the mother unable to control her son a few places ahead of us in the Audi queue. And that's when the default mindset kicks in. But we always have a choice as to how we view life. The default mindset is just one interpretation of the events in front of you. Perhaps the mother is a carer at a local hospital. Perhaps the man in the Tesla that just cut in front of you is on his way to see his son's first clarinet performance, or taking his wife to the hospital to give birth. And sometimes, we might be too tired, too exhausted, to even make an effort to consider other possibilities, the other interpretations. But if we realise that we always have the choice, we can find meaning in every situation. We can liberate ourselves from the narrow view that our reality should be structured a certain way, that we are at the centre of the universe, and everyone should move out of our way, especially after all the work we've been putting in and all of the things on our to-do lists. So free yourself from such expectations by considering other more useful interpretations, and you'll discover more opportunities to demonstrate kindness, appreciation, or just acceptance of how crap things can be sometimes. And the growth mindset, just out of interest, put your mindset, put your hand up if you've heard of the growth mindset before. Okay, that's cool. So, yeah, that's interesting. Most of you have heard of it. And just for those who may not be familiar, the growth mindset means that you believe that intelligence, talent, other qualities can be developed with practice and effort. And that's in contrast to the fixed mindset, which believes that such things, certain situations are innate, it's unchangeable. You know, it came down to talent or fate, and that's another way of viewing the world. So, success, as the best-selling author Ryan Holiday says, like the proverbial sausage, is much less pretty when you see how it's made. Because the reality is, you don't rock up to the mic and spit fire immediately. You won't find your soulmate first time round without dozens of arguments or awkward conversations. We forget that good relationships, like good things, take effort at realigning after each smooth fade. Life is an awkward, jumbled, ziggy-zaggy line towards your goals, not a straight one when you know you're calling at the age of 20. The reality is that you're going to take 3 steps forward sometimes and then 2 steps back. And so we see the danger of such a mantra, that failure is uncommon, that sticking to only one course is the way to go. But there certainly is hope. It's just a lot more messy than we are often led to believe. It's counterintuitive. Limitations really are your perceptions, your stories, the boundaries that you draw, and it's time to challenge those assumptions, beliefs and stories. It's time to pick up the pen and write your own story. So we'll have a break now. So yeah, please take some carrot cake and other stuff, and I'll see you in a few minutes.